Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're going to be diving deep into the world of hacking and cybersecurity today.
Sounds intense.
It is, but it's going to be fascinating. We've got some really interesting source material to work with today.
Yeah, lay it on me.
So we've got excerpts from a book called Hands-on Hacking, which, as the name suggests,
Pretty straightforward.
it is. It promises a very practical look at hacking from a penetration tester's perspective. So we're talking about the actual tools and techniques they use.
Yeah, not just the theory then.
Exactly. We want to understand how this stuff really works in practice. And to help us with that,
We've got more.
yeah, we've also got a whole stack of definitions from the book's index.
So we're not just going to be throwing around jargon.
Nope. We're going to break it down, make it clear, and understand how it all connects.
I like it. So what's the mission for this deep dive? What are we trying to uncover?
Well, we're going to be talking about building our own hacking labs.
Wait, we're building labs.
Virtually speaking, yeah.
Okay, that's a relief. I thought we'd need like hazmat suits.
Not quite that intense. But yeah, we'll talk about how to set up a safe environment to practice these skills. Then we're going to learn about gathering intel like a pro.
So like spying, but legal.
Exactly. It's called open source intelligence, or OSINT,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll delve into the vulnerabilities that make systems crack.
The stuff that keeps security experts up at night.
Exactly. And it's all about doing this ethically, right?
Yeah.
We're not trying to turn anyone into a black hat hacker.
Right. This is about understanding both sides, the attacker and the defender.
Exactly. And speaking of real-world examples,
Oh, you've got some juicy ones.
hands-on hacking even goes into famous cases like the Heartbleed bug.
Heartbleed. Now that one rings a bell. That was a big deal, right?
Huge. It was a major vulnerability found in a piece of software called OpenSSL.
OpenSSL. So like a lock on a digital door.
Yeah, a very important lock. And this bug essentially left that door wide open.
Meaning.
Attackers could have potentially snatched sensitive information like passwords.
And encryption keys. The stuff that keeps our online activity private.
Exactly. It affected tons of websites, even big-name ones.
A global security nightmare.
Pretty much. The book actually talks about how someone could have exploited this using a tool literally called OpenSSL.
So even after they fixed the bug, there might have been ways to snoop on communications.
It's scary stuff.
It is. It makes you realize how fragile our digital world can be.
Okay, so back to the beginning.
Yeah.
This whole idea of building a hacking lab. Why is that the starting point?
Well, you need a safe space to practice and experiment, right?
Makes sense.
Hmm.
Don't want to accidentally unleash chaos on my own system.
Exactly. The book calls it your hack box, which is basically a dedicated computer where you can run simulations and try things out without risking any damage to your main system.
So I need to buy a second computer just for this.
Not necessarily. You can actually use something as simple as a Raspberry Pi.
Hold on. A Raspberry Pi. Can something that small really handle serious hacking tasks?
Surprisingly, yes. It's a testament to how accessible this field can be. You can get started without breaking the bank.
Okay, that eases the pressure a bit. What about the software? Do I need to learn how to code?
The book recommends installing an operating system called Kali Linux.
Kali Linux.
You've probably heard of it. It's specifically designed for penetration testing and security auditing.
Okay, but installing a whole new operating system sounds complicated.
It's easier than you think. The book walks you through setting it up in a virtual machine.
A virtual what now?
Think of it like creating a mini computer inside your existing one.
Oh, so like a computer within a computer.
Exactly. It adds another layer of safety, and it's pretty straightforward to set up.
All right, that makes me feel a bit better about not needing to buy a whole new setup. So even someone who's not a tech whiz can create a hacking lab.
That's the point. Hands-on hacking is designed to be practical and guide you step by step.
That's good to hear. So what tools do I need for this virtual lab?
The book covers tools like VirtualDocs, which helps you manage your virtual machines, and KeepSX for keeping all those passwords safe.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all comes together.
It's like assembling a digital toolbox.
But before we get too deep into the technical stuff, let's talk about the why behind all of this. Why is it important for someone like me, who's not a cybersecurity professional, to even learn about hacking?
That's a great question. It boils down to awareness, understanding the risks we face online.
Okay, so it's about being proactive,
Yeah,
not waiting for something bad to happen.
exactly. Think of it this way. You wouldn't drive a car without understanding the basic rules of the road, right?
You'd be a danger to yourself and everyone else.
Exactly. The internet is similar. Knowing how attackers think and the techniques they use can help you protect yourself.
So it's like defensive driving, but for the digital world.
I like that analogy. And this book gives you the knowledge to do just that.
So what kind of knowledge are we talking about?
We'll be diving into different types of attacks, vulnerabilities, and even how to gather information like a real pro using open source intelligence.
OSINT. That's the spy stuff we talked about earlier, right?
Exactly. Think of it as the art of finding information that's publicly available. It's something both attackers and defenders use.
So it was like a game of information chess.
In a way, yes. The book actually mentions a case where someone used OSINT techniques to discover a gas station's entire management system was exposed online.
Wait, so someone could theoretically control fuel prices from their couch?
It's a real possibility. And it highlights how much of our world is interconnected and potentially vulnerable.
Okay, now I'm definitely intrigued. So we've got our hacking lab set up virtually. At least we understand why this knowledge is important, and we've got a taste of what OSINT is all about.
We're off to a good start. What's next on our hacking journey?
Well, before we start exploiting vulnerabilities, we need to understand how they work.
Lay the foundation.
Exactly.
Mm.
And one of the most common entry points for attackers is through weak or stolen passwords.
Ah, yes, the classic password problem. Everyone's got them. Nobody wants to remember them.
Exactly. And that's where things like hashing algorithms come in.
Okay, hashing algorithms. Those were mentioned in the book's index. I have to admit, they sound a bit intimidating.
They can be, but don't worry, we'll break it down. Think of a hashing algorithm as a way to scramble your password into a seemingly random string of characters.
So instead of storing my actual password, websites store this scrambled version.
Exactly. It's called a hash.
So even if someone gets access to the website's database, they don't actually see my password.
In theory, no. But there are ways attackers try to crack these hashes.
So it's like a puzzle with a really complex solution.
Exactly. And we'll get into how they try to solve that puzzle later on.
This is already getting pretty intense, and we're just getting started.
That's the thing about cybersecurity. It's a constant cat and mouse game. But the more you understand how both sides operate,
The better prepared you'll be.
exactly.
You know, we were talking about OSINT before.
Right, the whole gathering information thing,
Well, that gas station example,
where someone could control fuel prices from their couch.
that's just the tip of the iceberg.
So there's more.
Way more. The book dives into tools like Shodan.
Shodan, what's that?
It's basically a search engine for devices connected to the internet.
So like Google, but for devices.
Exactly. Instead of searching websites, you're searching for things like webcams.
Webcams. That's kind of creepy.
It can be, but think about it. You can find servers, industrial control systems.
Industrial control systems. Like the
Right.
things that run power plants.
Exactly. It's pretty eye-opening stuff.
So I could use Shodan to find any device connected to the internet.
Pretty much. It shows you just how much of our world is interconnected and potentially vulnerable.
Okay, that's a little unsettling.
Yeah.
But back to OSINT for a second.
Right.
You mentioned it's used for gathering information about people too.
Oh, yeah. Think about data breaches and leaks. Attackers get their hands on that kind of data all the time.
But how do they do it?
Well, besides technical hacks, there's the human element.
Human element, meaning
Social engineering, think phishing emails, fake websites, even honey trapping on LinkedIn.
honey trapping on LinkedIn. That sounds intense.
It can be attackers use OSINT to gather information about their targets.
So like stalking but digital.
In a way, yes. They can find out your job history, your social media posts.
So even something as simple as posting about your vacation could be used against you.
Absolutely. It's all about creating a profile that attackers can then use to exploit vulnerabilities.
That's scary. So it's not just individuals who are at risk.
Nope. Companies can be targeted too. The book mentions a case where a company's entire network was compromised because an employee fell for a phishing scam.
All because of one email.
One wrong click can have huge consequences.
Okay, that's a good reminder to be careful. Speaking of emails,
Oh yeah, what about them?
the book also talks about email exploitation, right?
You bet email is still goldmine for attackers.
But how?
The book explains how misconfigured email servers can be used to send spam, or even worse, spoofed emails.
Spoofed emails. Those are the ones that look like they're coming from a legitimate source, right?
Exactly. Like an email that looks like it's from your bank asking you to update your account information.
But it's actually from an attacker trying to steal my credentials.
Bingo. It's a classic trick.
So how can you tell if an email is actually spoofed?
Good question. The book suggests checking the sender's address carefully.
Okay, so look for anything suspicious.
Right, like misspellings or unusual domain names.
Got it. But what if it looks totally legit?
Well, sophisticated attackers can make spoofed emails look very convincing.
So what's the best defense?
Being cautious? Don't click on links or open attachments from unknown senders.
And if something seems off,
It's always best to contact the supposed sender directly, through a trusted channel.
all right, good advice. Let's shift gears a bit. The book also covers web application vulnerabilities, right?
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
It seems like every other day there's a new data breach or website hack in the news.
Web applications are a prime target for attackers.
But why?
Well, they often contain sensitive information, and they're exposed to the public.
So they're easy to attack.
Relatively speaking, the book goes deep into some of the most common vulnerabilities.
What?
Things like SQL injection and cross-site scripting.
Okay, those are terms I've heard before,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not sure I fully understand them.
No problem. We can break it down. Think of a website that has a search bar.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
You type in what you're looking for, and the website searches its database for matching results.
Right, pretty standard stuff.
Well, SQL injection is when an attacker manipulates that search query
To do what?
to trick the database into revealing information it shouldn't.
So they're hacking the website through the search bar?
Essentially, yes. And these vulnerabilities can exist on even the most seemingly harmless websites.
Okay, that's unsettling.
Wow.
What about cross-site scripting? What's that all about?
Think of it like this. You're visiting a website and suddenly a pop-up appears.
One of those annoying things.
But this pop-up looks like it's from the website itself.
Oh, so it's legit.
Not quite. It's
Right.
actually an attacker's code running in your browser.
And that code can...
Steal your information or even take control of your account.
So it's like a trap planted on the website.
Exactly. And the book goes into how these attacks are carried out and how to protect against them.
Okay, this is all pretty heavy stuff. It makes you realize how vulnerable our online world really is.
It is, but it's important to understand these risks.
Right. Knowledge is power.
Hmm.
But the book also talks about how to protect ourselves.
Right, absolutely. One of the simplest yet most effective ways is to use strong passwords and a good password manager.
Okay, you're going to have to elaborate on that one. What exactly makes a strong password?
Well, the book recommends using a passphrase.
A passphrase.
Yeah, it's a string of random words. It's much easier to remember than a jumble of letters, numbers, and symbols.
So like corrector's battery staple.
Exactly. And a password manager can help you generate and store these complex passphrases securely.
Okay, that makes sense. But even with a strong password, aren't there other ways attackers can get around that? Didn't you mention something about password hashes earlier?
Right. Password hashes are how websites store your passwords without actually revealing the password itself.
It's like a one-way encryption, right?
Exactly. But even with hashing, attackers have ways of trying to crack those codes.
How do they do that?
They use techniques like brute forcing, where they try every possible combination of characters.
So it's just a guessing game.
Kinda, but with computers doing the guessing,
So the longer, more random my password.
the harder it is to crack.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So strong passwords and password managers are a must.
Agreed. What other defensive techniques does the book cover?
Hmm.
I'm curious.
Well, one area that often gets overlooked is file sharing.
File sharing, but that's pretty standard these days.
It is. We all share files online, whether it's for work or personal use.
Right, gotta share those cat videos somehow.
Exactly. But those file sharing protocols can have vulnerabilities too.
Wait, even file sharing can be risky. I thought those were pretty secure.
Not always. The book dives into vulnerabilities related to the server message block or SMB protocol.
SMB protocol. That rings a bell. Wasn't that involved in the WannaCry attack?
Bingo WannaCry exploited a vulnerability in Microsoft's implementation of SMB, that ransomware attack that caused chaos a few years back.
The one and only. And it wasn't just Windows systems at risk.
So Linux users weren't safe either.
Nope. The book mentions SambaCry, which targeted Samba.
Samba.
It's an open source version of SMB often used on Linux.
So both Windows and Linux can be vulnerable to these file sharing attacks
That's right. It highlights the importance of keeping your systems up to date.
with the latest security patches, you mean?
Exactly. Many of these attacks target known vulnerabilities that have already been fixed.
Okay, that's a good reminder to install those updates. But seriously, is everything online vulnerable?
It's not about everything being vulnerable.
So what is it about?
It's about understanding the risks and taking steps to mitigate them.
Okay, that makes sense. So what are the key takeaways here?
Well, the book emphasizes that security is a continuous process.
Not a one-time fix.
Exactly. It's about staying vigilant, being aware of the threats, and taking appropriate precautions.
So we've covered OSINT, email exploitation, web application vulnerabilities, and file sharing.
We've made some good progress.
It feels like we've barely scratched the surface here.
We have covered a lot of ground. But there's still more to explore.
Like what?
We haven't even touched on privilege escalation, report writing, and some of the more advanced hacking techniques the book covers.
Well, I guess that's why it's called hands-on hacking, right?
Exactly. There's always more to learn.
Always more to dive into.
That's what keeps things interesting.
All right, so where do we go from here?
Well, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned so far. We've talked about the tools, the techniques.
And the mindset?
Exactly. It's all connected. But now I want to shift gears a bit. We've focused a lot on the technical side of things.
Right, the how-to of hacking.
Exactly. But there's another aspect that's just as important.
Which is?
The human side of cybersecurity.
Okay, I'm intrigued. We haven't really touched on that.
We've talked about vulnerabilities and attacks and tools.
Right, the technical stuff.
Exactly. But it's people who ultimately make decisions about security.
And people make mistakes.
All the time. Think about it. Even with the best security systems in place.
One wrong click can bring the whole thing crashing down.
Exactly. The book talks about social engineering.
Right, tricking people into giving up sensitive information.
It's a powerful technique because it exploits our natural tendencies to trust and be helpful.
So it's not just about technology. It's about understanding human psychology.
Precisely. And that's why security awareness training is so important.
So teaching people how to spot phishing scams and other social engineering tactics.
Exactly. It's about creating a culture of security within organizations.
Making everyone responsible for protecting sensitive information.
Exactly. Now, the book focuses heavily on Linux-based systems.
Right, specifically Kali Linux.
But many of the concepts and techniques apply to other systems as well.
So even if I'm not a Linux guru.
The principles are still relevant. The book even dives into Solaris.
Solaris? That's a name I haven't heard in a while. Isn't that mostly used in, like, big corporate settings?
Yeah, you'll find it in a lot of data centers and enterprise environments.
So what's the point of talking about Solaris?
It illustrates that vulnerabilities can exist in any operating system.
Not just Windows or Linux?
Exactly. It's about broadening our perspective and understanding that security is a universal concern.
So what kind of vulnerabilities are we talking about with Solaris?
Well, one example the book highlights is a vulnerability that allowed attackers to gain root access to Solaris systems.
Root access. That sounds bad.
It is. It's the highest level of access you can have on a system.
So basically, complete control.
Pretty much. And this vulnerability was found in something called the Calendar Manager Service Daemon.
The Calendar Manager Service Daemon, what is that?
It's a service that runs in the background on Solaris systems.
And it had a vulnerability?
That allowed attackers to potentially take control of the entire system.
All because of a calendar service.
It just goes to show that vulnerabilities can crop up in the most unexpected places.
Okay, I'm definitely starting to see a pattern here. It seems like a lot of these vulnerabilities stem from misconfigurations or outdated software.
You're absolutely right. The book really emphasizes the importance of proper system administration and security practices.
So it's not just about having the latest and greatest security tools.
It's about using them effectively and configuring systems securely.
Right, like having a state-of-the-art alarm system, but leaving the front door unlocked.
Exactly. It defeats the purpose. Security is a holistic process.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's be honest. Who hasn't clicked on a suspicious link or downloaded a file they shouldn't have? We're all human after all.
We are. And that's why awareness and education are so important. The more you understand about the threats out there,
the better equipped you'll be to protect yourself.
Exactly. It's like learning self-defense. You don't want to wait until you're attacked to start thinking about how to protect yourself.
So this book is kind of like a self-defense manual for the digital world.
I like that analogy. It's about giving you the knowledge and tools to defend yourself in an increasingly complex and interconnected world.
Speaking of tools, the book mentions a tool called Metasploit. What is that exactly?
Metasploit is like the ultimate hacking toolkit. It's a framework that contains a massive collection of exploits, pieces of code that take advantage of vulnerabilities. And it's got payloads.
Payloads, like the stuff that gets delivered after you exploit a vulnerability.
Exactly. And a whole bunch of other tools that security professionals and ethical hackers use to test systems for vulnerabilities.
So it's like a hacking Swiss Army knife.
Pretty much. The book gives several examples of how Metasploit can be used to simulate real-world attacks.
So you can see how vulnerabilities are exploited and learn how to defend against them.
Exactly. It's a powerful tool for learning and research.
Okay, that sounds incredibly powerful. But wouldn't this tool be dangerous in the wrong hands?
Absolutely. That's why it's crucial to emphasize the ethical aspect of hacking. This book is not about teaching people how to be malicious hackers.
So it's all about using these tools for good.
Precisely. And it's not just about the tools themselves, it's about the mindset. Ethical hackers are driven by a desire to make systems more secure.
Not to cause harm.
Exactly. They use their knowledge to help organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities before attackers can exploit them.
Okay, I'm getting a much clearer picture of what ethical hacking is all about. It's not just about finding vulnerabilities. It's about using that knowledge responsibly to make the digital world a safer place.
Exactly. And that's what makes this book so valuable. It doesn't just teach you how to hack, it teaches you how to think like a hacker.
Which is an essential skill in today's digital landscape.
Absolutely, because the bad guys are always thinking one step ahead.
So we need to stay ahead of them.
Exactly. Knowledge is power. And the more we understand about how hackers operate,
the better prepared we'll be to defend ourselves.
That's the key takeaway from this deep dive. Cybersecurity is a constantly evolving field, but the core principles remain the same.
Be vigilant, be aware, and be proactive.
Exactly. And never stop learning. The digital world is full of challenges and opportunities. And with the right knowledge and skills,
we can navigate it safely and securely.
That's what it's all about.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from building our own hacking labs to exploring sophisticated attack techniques.
And even delving into the ethical considerations of this field.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. But what's fascinating is how much the digital landscape has evolved even in the last few years.
Right. The book focuses on Linux, but so much of our world now runs on mobile apps and cloud services.
Exactly. And that raises an important question. How do these hacking concepts apply to this new frontier?
How can we adapt our knowledge and skills to stay ahead of the curve?
That's something for all of us to ponder. The world of cybersecurity is constantly changing. But one thing remains constant.
What's that?
The need for knowledge. The more you know about how hackers operate,
the better equipped you'll be to protect yourself and your data.
It's all about empowerment, taking control of your digital security.
And this book is a great place to start. Hands-on hacking. It's a practical guide to understanding the world of cybersecurity from both sides.
The attacker and the defender.
So whether you're a seasoned security professional or just starting out,
this book has something to offer.
And it's a reminder that security is everyone's responsibility.
We all have a role to play in making the digital world a safer place.
So stay informed, stay vigilant, and keep learning. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of hacking and cybersecurity. We'll see you next time.